just looking up the root word of community, commune, and one of the definitions I really like was share. And I think that, right, we share that, right? We share the risen Christ as our center. And I think that comes out in so many different ways in what we do, ranging from, being able to share each other's lives outside of here, taking care and concern for each other as people. And I see our students doing the same exact thing, where they gather to pray. I just walked into class right before class, and something was going on with one of the students. I knew what it was, and they were praying for it right before I went into class, and that was fantastic. It was absolutely wonderful. And so as we draw our community around Christ, all the things that you just mentioned, Hans, what you mentioned about the special callings that each one of us has, we share that. We share those callings. We encourage each other through them, and we have a lot of fun while we do it. No, with the joking, I mean, really seriously. I mean, just in the meeting that we had before here, the ways that we can talk, right? And then I think what I've noticed, at least over the 8 years I've been here, how quick we tend to be to ask for forgiveness of each other if we think we've either spoken out of line. You did that. You just did that, Hans. I'm sorry if I, said this or went that way, and I think it's so important for us to model that, and that's one of the things I think draws us together.
That's an interesting observation, because when you ask us to describe community, it's shared task, shared space, common interest, and we have all of that. We have this great camaraderie among the faculty here, but it's also with the students. I'm struck by the Africa students, who I don't actually direct their program. Beth directs their program, and yet, amazingly so, they came up at the CCDA booth and got attention, drew attention to the Eastern place, because they love this place. Yeah. Our students love this place. They recognize that we're not just into the banking mode of education. We're not just giving them information. It's about transformation, whole person transformation, right? They come and we walk with them through their education, through their life, and they share their lives with us. And what a blessing and a benefit. And then you guys, you share your lives with me. When Maz left for college on Tuesday night and I had to come back and teach a 3-hour class and I was a wreck going home, who is in my driveway waiting with dinner and company? It's Beth, right? I step out of my car.
She brought you dinner.
She brought me dinner.
She didn't bring me dinner.
So the community extends. I am, from our students to our colleagues to what we do here, it is full and all-encompassing. We are engaged in the work of God in the world. We are waking up the world, and we're doing it, as you said, David, with prayer and in the midst of a community of people who strongly believe that our work joins God's work in the world, and we have something to contribute, and that's what this place is.
I like the way that you linked in the community with the academics, and it brought to mind the way that, at least in our programs, our alumni are such a vital piece of helping us keep our courses up to date. So we're constantly checking in with them, how did this program prepare you? Is there anything out there that you've seen since then that you think might be useful to integrate into it? And we don't get a lot of people saying, why don't you look at this? But we get enough to then help us to explore and to incorporate that. And just the feedback from our alumni, the way that they, for example, we Skype them into class, or the way that we have them come give presentations on campus, to builds those bridges, and I think it allows our students to say, oh yeah, I hadn't thought about doing that, or hadn't thought about doing it that way. I remember one student, we were Skyping Faith from wherever she was in the world, responding to a disaster. And one of the students in the class joked, I want your job someday. And actually, he ended up meeting her later in Myanmar, where he's working now, and it just built on itself in a number of different ways.
Well, she was just sitting right where he was just, 4 years ago?
4 years before.
I mean, so much had happened to her in those 4 years. It's amazing. And through alumni networks that, and relationships with the adjuncts professors. So there's a perfect case where our adjuncts truly want to be part of our community. So Faith got that opportunity through one of the adjuncts, Francois.
Yeah, that's right. I forgot about that. Yeah.
The multiplier effect. I like the fact that I come to work every day incredibly happy with the people that I get to work with.
It's a blessing.
And it's not something to take for granted.
Mhm.
And we are also different. I mean, SLD was built on the concept of an interdisciplinary department. So, with the fact that one anthropologist, one leadership professor, one sociologist, one business person, it makes for a lovely blend. And then personality differences.
Mhm.
And I think we have nice team building. And that extends beyond with the broader community of people who serve our programs, like Stan LaQuire and like Mike Sheridan, who aren't here today because they couldn't be part of this conversation.
I think one of the things also as we think about the building of the community among our students, I think the different delivery models have different ways of doing that.
Yeah.
So the 3-week residency model out of Africa and out of the United States, I mean, that obviously they're living with each other and taking course together for 3 weeks with the devotionals that start off the day, and that just builds incredible closeness. Or what used to be the weekend model residency, right? You're getting together for 7, 8 residencies over the course of the year, same thing, in that intensity of 2 or 3 days. And then the on-campus program, obviously, since everybody's taking all the courses together at once, it also builds up an incredibly strong community. And I think we've seen across those residency models, time and time again, that's what people comment on, is that the community that they built up with their students is a lifelong community that goes with them. And that's, for me, one of the most rewarding things to see, those relationships coming together, that prayer coming together, that continues on is really, really neat.
I mean, one thing I honestly get jealous about wanting to go back to school again is they get to go to lunch together, they have coffee together, and they don't want the prof around. So I don't know what they're telling, good things or bad things about the prof, but what I do know is it's in those intimate times away from the classroom that there's something special that happens in their lives. I think of one event where we took everyone to the Franklin Museum just as a sociological observation. But they had more fun playing the games and participating in the game playing at the museum as a team building exercise than they ever could have learned from me lecturing in a classroom. So I think there's these kind of moments that happen, eating together, living together, sharing joy, sharing pain together, that does something at a high professional level. It's not just some cheesy thing that happens like a little dorm mate. It's really high level grappling with issues of life together. I think it's one of the really things, and quite frankly, I still am jealous that I don't get to go for coffee as much as I wish I could.
No, and it is such a blessing to run into them at conferences and they are so connected. So if you run into one from a cohort, they can get you up to date on everybody in that cohort. Like,
There's
have
gossip?
you seen so and so's boyfriend?
Gossip.
No, I haven't.
People gossip.
They build into each other's lives in such a way that even after they're done here with the program, it's amazing that sense of community carries on for them in very, very meaningful ways. So yeah. It's a great, I'm telling you that when I didn't even teach these students in Africa. They were in Beth in your program, and they saw me at CCDA, and it was just instantaneous. We've shared an experience. We've shared a space and time, and some ideas, and some conversations, and some worship. We're part of what's going on in the world here. So
I think
great.
part of that too is just the way you teach them, Joanne, and the way we all try to teach them is, in a sense, not treating them as students, but treating them as co-equal learners. Right? I mean, we all have things to share, and especially, I mean, we're interacting with students, many of whom have a tremendous amount of experience that we look forward to learning from, and so it's not necessarily a hierarchy thing. It can be in some cases when the students are younger, perhaps, but just the friendships that you actually build with them are incredibly rewarding, right?
Well, we look at the community as part of the sideline, but I also think it's some of the unwritten pedagogy. It's the unwritten curriculum. If they didn't have those relationships, if they didn't form that sense of trust, our courses and our learning experience, and that's for the professor and the students together, is built on and needs that kind of trust and transparency and relationship. Doesn't mean you all have to like each other, love each other, but out of that is where you're then willing to share the struggles in your leadership role. Because leadership isn't easy, you know. And so when you feel you're in that safe space of the classroom, be it in Rwanda or in Africa or in Philadelphia or online, having that space to know this is a group of people that will let me process this, and together we will pull out all of the lessons that are worth learning in my leadership journey so that I can be transformed when I return to work tomorrow. And they are transformed by me sharing it with them, you know. And so the sense of community, in my opinion, especially in the types of programs we do, is such a necessary part of the curriculum.
That's a really good point.
Yeah, that's that learning community, and it's at play with
Yeah.
in all aspects.
Yeah.
The online aspect, they don't lose that when they go online.
I think it deepens them. in
Yeah,
ways.
you'd think, wow,
Especially for the
they get online
introverts.
and they're
Yeah.
private, and it's like, no, they continue that sense of community that was built here in the seed stages, whether they're on the on-ground platform or and you move the class online, or whether you're coming for that 3-week annual residency and you're dispersed back for 3 weeks back, you know, for the rest of the year. It's fundamentally how the program builds community. The students take the lead on that, and we get to participate in that learning community, and it's a really humbling experience.
I mean, Beth, I really like that you bring out the word leadership. And then you bring out learning community. I think of a leadership learning community. It sounds kind of colloquial and cute, I know. But, you know, really that's what happens here is they're leaders. It's not just a low-level interaction that takes place. They're building leadership skills, learning how to get along with one another, academically, socially, professionally, and, you know, good old Bible verse says, iron sharpens iron. The statement says, I put myself into places of people that are going to challenge who I am. So, I mean, as faculty, in many ways, we're just facilitating this leadership process that's lifting their leadership. They challenge one another. So this leadership learning community lifts and challenges and molds and shapes that at the end of the day, what gets outputted are people that were a whole awful lot better at what they do and have much deeper, authentic character than when they came in the doors of the school.
And it's interesting when you think of the corporate world and what they pay for that experience for their executives. So executive retreats.
That's a good point. Yeah.
They hope for the kind of community to happen that happens in our residency environment. The iron sharpening iron. They pay big bucks to bring in coaches and executive mentors and outward bound type experiences. And that's all built in to our experience. We didn't necessarily think about it that way when it started, but it seems to be what evolves from that leadership learning community. I think we should be charging more. Maybe we need to increase that more corporate pricing strategy.
You make a good point, because I could use that new car.
Seriously, what you pay for an executive coach, you know, our students at these leadership
getting
levels
it,
are
yeah.
doing that with each other.
That's a good point.
We should be charging more.
You were going to say something.
No, you're good.
I think another element to this as well that helps draw people together and helps create those safe spaces of trust is the emphasis on justice and on really looking closely at relationships and the power dynamics in relationships, which I think goes to help people to feel, you know, I may be able to express something here I can't express in other places, because there is that commitment to really make sure that the analysis is along the lines of, okay, well, from a justice perspective, what does this look like? Conversely, those who feel that they may not want to say something because it's not quote-unquote politically correct, one of the things I've noticed when I've said and learned from your classes, Hans, is the way you facilitate is to create a safe space for those people as well. Right? So, and one of the things we try to emphasize, obviously, as we begin our classes with prayer or devotion or whatever it is, that we have to speak what the Spirit lays on our heart, because if we don't, and we don't trust each other in these safe spaces, we're not going to be able to work through these issues of power and justice and perspectives. And so whether it be a very conservative perspective or a very liberal perspective, we need to be able to work those through, because if we don't, we won't learn. And it's been really exciting to see that happen.
And that's great for the justice piece. When you think of justice, if you define it out a little bit and you say, hey, justice is the advancement of the well-being of each other, of the other. And our students are so engaged in that already in their lives, even before they come to us. And one of the things I hear frequently is, wow, I didn't realize that there were a whole bunch of other people who felt and wanted to do this work on this level in this way. And so it's not just the material that they're reading or the input from faculty, it's the peer group that they form, recognizing that they're a bunch of, as Lindy Backus would say, like-minded deviants, right? Who join them in this plight that they're engaged in the work of God in the world. So that's a huge piece of what happens with community. I find that idea of shalom compelling and fits really great with this whole idea of community. So you like Brueggemann and I like Wolterstorff, and find that Wolterstorff's idea of, hey, it's rightness of relationship with God, with self, with creation, and with others, and that fits so well with what we're trying to do here. It's the full scope of reaching someone, of caring about our world, and in the context of education and transformation and community, all great words. The most meaningful thing that's anchored in here is how well they love each other, how well they love God, how well they join in the plight of those who are unable to care for and do things for themselves. So they really come in wanting to work on behalf of the others. And that to me has been the highlight of working in SLD. And as you well know, I've been a few places in the university, but this place, for some reason, captures the ethos of what Eastern does in terms of how it reaches for justice, in terms of how you each represent in your own scholarship and in your own lives your commitment, your very commitment to caring about the students, about your discipline, and about this institution. And that's so evident that when I come to work with you, that's what I see. I see your commitment, your personal commitment to justice. So I never think, wow, we talk about justice, and our guys aren't doing justice. You guys are doing justice, so much so that you inspire me to do self-reflection and take that up a notch too. So the benefit is not just for the students, it's for you as colleagues as well. You live that call, and it keeps me faithful. So.
And for those watching at home, we did not pay her to say that. Honest, we did not pay her. I'm thinking of it, but.
For a group